Hi guys, welcome to the shop. Today we're working on the 1956 Beetle chassis. This is kind of the winter project. This is building the engine. We gotta clean up the transmission, reseal it. That was actually working okay. I did drive this car before we took it all apart. So we will start with the front end here. We're gonna have to rebuild the steering box. That's all leaking. And the link pins and king pins, I'm sure, are going to need new bushings. But today I think I'll start with the pedal assembly. We'll get that taken care of. It looks to be in real good shape. It's there's no play in the bushings, but it does have the bracket out here, kind of a support bracket, which kind of helps save the bushings, I think, because it gives a support out there, where the newer ones, when they're trying to save money, they quit putting a bracket there, and those wear out. So we'll take it apart. We'll see how it goes. If we need new bushings, I do have some we can put in there, press in there if we need to. And this is the old roller pedal. This is actually what the gas pedal was back in the day. Just a plastic roller. Also, what we're going to have to do is these pedals have pads on them. And these are just aftermarket pads, obviously, because it just has a V on it instead of a VW. So I think they're just trying to get around the copyright. Volkswagen for a while was really particular about their logo being on old aftermarket parts. This here is the an original pad. This is actually I made this out of casting some rubber compound and from an original, but this is how the original looked with it had the actual VW in it and a little different pattern. This is a later style pattern, 60s. This is the earlier 50s pattern. So I have one of these left, so I'll have to cast one or two more of these. I'll show you how I do that. So we'll actually pour a mold and cast one for the other side. They're the same. The clutch and the brake are the same pad. So that's on the agenda for today. So this here's a brake pedal stop, which likes to wear out, but you can put a little bead of weld on there and kind of bring it back into shape. And then here's that bracket. It holds the end of the pedal assembly shaft. This is the brake pedal plunger. That goes into the master cylinder here. So that's clipped on. We'll have to unclip that. So it actually doesn't look like there's a clip behind here. This is just in there. So I'm not sure. Not too safe. And then here's the brake plunger with an adjust. This is where you adjust your pedal travel. Spring's in good shape. This is pinned. We'll have to drift that out or press it out. And now I have to get these two large screws screwing the pedal assembly to the tunnel. And then the clutch cable, the clutch pedal has a hook on the end that hooks to the cable. So that usually undoes itself. Otherwise you got to wiggle it around a little. Try to get it off the clutch cable. So I'm going to put an old paper clip as a pin on this. And there's the throttle cable pin. And this should be free now. There you have it. This is the complete pedal assembly. So I'll take this over to the bench and start taking this apart. Okay, so here's all the parts. This here is a hook that hooks onto the clutch cable, and this is almost always worn. I've seen these worn almost all the way through to the edge here, and this one is in really good shape. So either this pedal assembly was rebuilt and a new piece put on here, or this is just real low miles, because that wears every time you hit the clutch, and eventually it wears all the way through. So that's in really good shape. This whole pedal assembly is in really good shape. So the first thing we need to do is get this clutch pedal off the shaft, which is pinned in with this pin. So we'll take this to the vise and punch that out. Okay, I have this pedal assembly clamped up in my vise here with the copper jaws so we don't mar it up too bad. And we're going to try to drift this out. Try it first without heat. You can see the bushing in there. A little worn, but not too bad. We will clean this all out in the parts washer. We got to drift this out. There's another pin in there for holding the accelerator pedal on. So put that in a vise and drift this off. And then there's also bushings in here. Which seem to be really good, so we'll clean it all up, all this in the parts washer, get a good inspection on the bushings. Okay, we're going to put a little bead of weld on top of here. You don't want this too short, otherwise the clutch pedal could slip off of here and fall to the floor while you're driving. And then you're quickly learning how to drive without a clutch. So we're going to put a little bead across there, grind it down to get this back up to shape. So we got a weld on there, cover that worn spot. You always put more than you think you need. Grind it down now. Okay, we're going to go ahead and mold this pedal pad. This is what was on there. These are the aftermarket cheap ones. And I do have one that I made in the past. And here's the mold. What I did was I had an original and I made a mold using silicone. This is silicone. And I just built a mold box out of old Legos. They're really nice because you can build them to any size to fit your part perfect. And you have minimal waste then. And this one here, I just molded it as one and then cut half of it open. So it opens up like this. And you can see the pedal in there, the VW. And I did spray it with a mold release. Technically, silicone should release it, this rubber from it, but the mold release is insurance. The older the mold gets, if you start making a lot of these, it'll start to stick after a while. So we're going to go ahead and I just put a rubber band around it to keep it closed. And we're going to use a pressure pot to do this. You can vacuum out the bubbles. Actually use the same pressure pot. We'll just pull a vacuum on it, pull the bubbles out of the rubber and pour it in there. And then you can let it just cure. You know, either under vacuum or you could just let it cure in the regular atmosphere. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and let it cure under pressure. We'll put like 100 pounds of pressure. That basically just takes any air bubbles that are in here and just squashes them basically. So you'll get a bubble-free pad, hopefully, when you're done. So that's what we're going to do. That's usually what I have the best luck with, is just putting it under pressure. And as long as you made this mold under pressure, you won't have any weird things happening. If you don't make this mold under pressure, you could, and there's bubbles inside the mold, when you put it under pressure, it could deform. So if you know you're gonna cure it under pressure, make sure you make the mold under pressure also. And what we're gonna do is find out how much they weigh. 20 ounces. This is the other one, that's 23 basically. So we'll pour 30 ounces to be safe. You know, you can't get everything out of the cup and you need a little overflow. So we're gonna do 15 and 15. And what I use is this here. This is Polytech 7560 RTV liquid rubber. And that's the durometer is 75. And I found that that's pretty good for these pedals. It's not too soft and firm enough to give it some durability. And this is actually, this rubber here, you can also use it to make the mold itself. And this is it with it just straight out of the can. It's like a honey color. And this mold here is for VW logoed spark plug boots. So it makes a good mold to this stuff, but it's a little firm. The silicone's much softer. So this is the normal color, and what we have is just some dye that we put a few drops of dye into it after we mix it, and that'll turn it black like this. So we'll mix them up. So we're going to 30, so we will scoop out 15, that's grams. So 15.5, that's pretty close. You do have a pretty good working time on this. But what I'll do now is actually mix the dye into this part. And that's about all you need. All right, so we'll tear this and we're going to put in 15.5 to be exact. This is part B. There we go. Make sure you get this good mixed. And we'll go ahead and pour it into the mold. Actually, I'm going to put one more rubber band around here. You can kind of open it up a little. And that's it. Try to push any bubbles, any big ones that are in there. That filled up pretty good. And there's enough on here. If there is any bubbles that are compressed, it will draw from the top here. I already have the air line hooked up. Put the mold in here. Clamp it down. And then we slowly put the pressure in. You want to go pretty slow because it's compressing any bubbles in there. You don't want it to go real quick and draw too much of that spare rubber that we had on the top. You want that to slowly flow in. What I like to do is just about 100 pounds. Between 90 and 100 is good. We'll do it right there. And then we can take this off. And now we just let it sit. I keep the spare. This is the extra rubber we had, which we did pretty good. There's not a whole lot there. I just keep that up there so I can test it. Make sure it's cured before you take the pressure off. Okay, so I let this sit overnight actually, and it's good and cured. Our test sample here cured up real good. This is the leftover from the pour. And we lost a little bit of pressure, but not too bad. It's down to like 80 pounds. So we're going to just slowly let the pressure out and see what we have. Okay, so that looks pretty good so far. Sometimes if this sinks in, there was an air bubble in there that it was trying to fill. So we'll take it apart here. We'll open it up. And it looks pretty good. Comes out pretty shiny from that mold release. I'll go over it with like some steel wool or wire brush to kind of dull it back down. So a lot of this flashing just peels off, and then this here will cut off. So we'll clean off the mold release and cut this extra piece off. I went over it with some warm soapy water just to clean off all of that mold release. I'll probably go over this with a Scotch-Brite and that to kind of knock this shine off. Right now we're going to cut the extra piece off here. And then we need to cut a groove out of there. So we actually have to cut this other one I had, needs the back cut off too here. So we'll trim these up. This is the new one, it's a little shinier. We'll just hit it with a little Scotch-Brite. That kind of takes that shine off. It looking more like the other one. Okay, so I have this all ready to go back together. I went ahead and plated these couple parts here. I do have a video on plating. It's called How to Plate Carburetor Linkage, I believe. I'll put a link up in the corner. But if you want to see how that's done, it's basically the same way, just a DIY zinc plate. Real simple. First thing we need to do is we'll put the grease fitting in. So that's good to go. I'm just using some high pressure moly grease. Just get it coated here, and then we'll pump it full of grease through the fitting. And put a little grease in there. Now I'll put the inside clutch shaft in. Again, some grease on there. Go in here. Okay, so now that this is all set, we need to put the spring on. And the spring basically pulls the brake pedal back towards the operator. So you want this hook around this way. And the brake pedal is going to go on. Grease fitting towards the operator, pedal towards the operator. And this will go on like that. And there is a notch in the shaft here that this bolt needs to sit in. So we have to line that up. inches right there. The bolt won't go in if it's not lined up. So that spring will push the pedal back. It just rests against the floor here. And now we're going to go ahead and put the clutch pedal on. This is kind of a snug fit here, so it's got to get hammered on. And you want to make sure that this hook is facing up. Like that. That catches the clutch cable. So I'll take this over to a vise and hammer this on and then hammer the pin in. Okay, so here we have it back from pressing the pin in, and the spring is on, grease fittings in. We'll put the accelerator pedal on, which goes on like this here, and this just gets a pin like this. It goes into like a recessed area here, and this goes against the tunnel. The car's tunnel is right up against here, so it holds that pin in. The pin for the brake plunger should have a hole in it, so for a cotter pin. So we'll have to do that. There's nothing to hold this pin from coming out if we don't pin it. So here's that. Then we'll put our new pads on. I kind of scuffed this one up a little. That's the new one. Those are the new pads. The piece that goes on here I also plated. Here's these two pieces. This is the stop for the clutch stop that bolts to the floor. And this is the end piece here. The file on that a little bit. To take and just file this edge up a little marred up from hammering on it, I think. Okay, I have this all set here. It just took a little bit of filing there. So this piece goes on there now. That anchors the clutch, and there's bushing on this side. So it's all good to go. So thanks a lot for watching. Please subscribe. Give me a like if you found it interesting, and we'll see you on the next one.